people who spent their educational career as rabbis in Cincinnati with only contact with Orthodoxy according to the liturgy class, 3 contacts for 3 services 3 times. That was their total contact with other Jews and the Jewish experience. I proceeded to lobby Nelson Glick, our son, and board members when he came to Jerusalem. I stayed there at the university and continued to lobby, and I think within about 4 or 5 years, we got past the program that thereafter first-year students at HUC would spend a year in Jerusalem. But I lobbied everybody I could to do that. Point being is that year of experience in Jerusalem, I've now seen, after a generation of rabbis, have now achieved power, have brought the pan-Jewish experience to their congregations because they now had more experience. And many have said that the classical reform lasted too long. Quite likely is because those classically trained Reformed rabbis didn't have the Israel experience. The Israel experience has indeed informed all the generation now. And I don't think enough can be said about the experience sending kids to Israel, college students to Israel. I've seen transformations even in 10 days of what it's done to people. It is important.
Right.
And even though it doesn't make up for a lifetime of not getting a Jewish education, it is meaningful.
No, good question, especially with the relationship to Israel. So yes to most of what you said that I agree with.
But does it create Israel advocacy is another bigger question.
The question is light pro-Israel in the light of, what they call J Street, in the light of J Street.
Right.
You mean education, religious education, or what kind
of
education?
I mean, yes, in just not in the American sense. For me, religious education is any education that teaches Jews to be Jewish. So that's religious. It could be learning Yiddish. It could be singing songs. To me, that's religious. Most Americans have a narrower, frankly, Protestant version of the word religion. And by that definition, I guess I'm not talking about religious education. I'm talking about being able. I'll give you one example. In 1974-75, I came to Israel. And I was in a serious conversation with one of my friends on his kibbutz. And another friend of mine, her name is Vivian Silva. She walked out of the room. I said, "Vivian, where'd you go?" So I couldn't stand it. I said, "What? You have no right coming here and having the same level of sophistication of conversation on Israeli politics as we who live here." So I said, "That's interesting. No, this is about me. If I could, as a 20-something-year-old, go to Israel and have that conversation, I knew what was going on. I was reading the paper as I was doing it. The internet around Al Gore hasn't been the internet yet. But I could have that conversation. I'm telling you, there's just so few American Jews who have Israel education, who could, if they're in literature, who can tell you the books they read, Mary Israeli's books by Amos Oz and
is there a reason because they see it as religious in the American sense, and people are getting, secular Jews are becoming less religious?
No, that's not the reason. The reason is they are conceiving of their being Jewish in personal, spiritual, American religious terms, and communal, political, world, global Jewish issues, including Israel, drops out of the definition of what it means to be Jewish. And again, when I was growing up, the biggest Jewish organization was the Democratic Party of Brooklyn. That was a Jewish organization. Jews ran it.
Yeah.
They delivered services. I mean, yes, I know it's not Judaic, and they didn't have a Torah sitting in there. It wasn't the Ten Commandments. But I'm exaggerating. Because a friend of mine says, "Steve, you exaggerate, but not enough." So I'm exaggerating, but I'm trying to make a point that being Jewish embraces all that. Certainly embraces Zionism. And the Zionism that American Jews, what they have is a Zionism that is engaged with all the decisions that Israel is making, left, right, center, in between. And that world, I remember I said about generations that mourn the loss of their way of being Jewish. I'm mourning the loss of that. And in a small way, I'm trying to maybe tell people, let's try to bring some of that back. We have I think it's 9:35. So, like, if we were fasting and this was Yom Kippur, you'd expect me to blow the shofar. So, instead of the shofar blow, thank you. See you next year. Okay, we're talking about Yerushalayim.